How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another edition of the Athletes of Podcast. Another quick fire weekly football roundup, talking about the latest news and ongoings in the football world. And joining me as always to discuss all of that is Flexx.
Yes, Richard, man. How's it going?
Yeah, very well, Flexx. Very well. How are you? How's your Easter weekend?
Yeah, not too bad, man. Not too bad. It's all over too quickly, and we're back at it again, right? So
Back at it again, man. We've got to keep on going. But again, guys, listen, we've got another week of football ahead. But yeah, I thought it'd be good to just kind of like do a quick roundup as we normally do and talk about the latest ongoings in football. And I think we've got to start with the result of the weekend, probably in the FA Cup, and that was Southampton beating Arsenal 2-1. And yeah, listen, that's back-to-back defeats for Arsenal. You know, we didn't really quite cover their Carabao Cup loss to City, but lost in that final. And yeah, it seems as if with the break as well, you know, they didn't recover and losing to Southampton, which was a bit of a surprise, to be honest, because when the draw was made, you're thinking Southampton away from home. Southampton are in good form. However, you're expecting Arsenal to go there and get a victory. Are we starting to see this potentially with the quadruple? That was what they were calling it before, right? Now that's 2 trophies down, potentially do a double. But I'm hearing Arsenal fans and people starting to worry that maybe is a Premier League in jeopardy, even though the 9 points clear. The Champions League, again, is a banana skin, as it always is. But are we starting to see a lot of worry from Arsenal fans? Is this really going to jeopardize their season? Like, what do you think?
I don't think so. I think it, in a weird way, not saying that they wanted to lose, it could have been maybe a strategic play on the manager's part to play a weakened side so that, you know, if they get through, they get through. If they don't, well, they've saved the boys to try and finish the season strong and win the Premier League, because at the end of the day, that's what he's going to be measured by, and that's what the team's going to be measured by. So winning the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup or making it to another final isn't really going to mean nothing. It's all about the Premier League, and I'm sure being knocked out of the FA Cup might just be the fuel in the fire for them to want to keep on going, want to keep on pushing, and to want to win the league. For people like me, I am praying to God that this is a sign of things to come where everything just goes catastrophically wrong for the Arsenal.
Yeah, I think what, as rival fans, nothing will make us happier to see them throw away both the Premier League and the Champions League, right? I think, listen, Arsenal have worked themselves into a position where they might look in, and you actually said, they might say, well, the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup aren't really a priority, right? But I still feel that Mikel Arteta and Arsenal will be really disappointed, because you've headed into a Carabao Cup final. Up until that point, Arsenal are playing really well. You know, it didn't look like they'll lose many games at that point. You're thinking they've got a really good chance to beat City here. City that wasn't in great form, a City that isn't a City of old. But again, they didn't go over the line. They messed up. Again, there was a goalkeeping error, which kind of altered the game. But at the same time, Arsenal didn't really turn up for the majority of that game, right? And then you go away to Southampton. You're expecting them to win that, get in the semi-final, again, back at Wembley, have a chance to go back in the final. As much as those two aren't a priority, I think they'll be disappointed, Flexx, because these are still trophies you can win. They would have thought, you know what, we're in great form. We can beat Southampton away. We can beat City in the Carabao Cup final. But again, those trophies are now gone. As we speak, you know, they're about to play Sporting Lisbon. Again, you expect them to beat Sporting Lisbon in the quarterfinals, but it wouldn't surprise me if they were to lose the first leg away from home and beat them at home convincingly. And again, people might say, well, Arsenal have got a favourable side in terms of the draw in the Champions League, but they had a favourable draw in the FA Cup and they didn't win that in that game. So these favours, of people saying, well, on paper they should beat so and so, it doesn't always work that way, because this team, when it comes to games they should win, or games where there's pressure, when it matters, we're not talking about what they've done up until this point. They've been brilliant all season. But when it comes to March, April, May, where trophies are on the line and there's chances to deliver and you know, win big prizes, this team doesn't know how to do it for whatever reason. Whether it's an FA Cup, Carabao Cup, Champions League, the league, they don't know how to get it done. And you're expecting a 9-point buffer is enough. City look really good right now. They battered Liverpool on Saturday, but you're expecting 9 points, Arsenal, not to mess that up. But again, they've lost 2 games back to back. Bournemouth now at home looks quite tricky, to be honest. So we'll see. But you're still adamant they're going to win the league, though. That's going to happen.
I mean, I'm not adamant because I'm not an Arsenal fan. So for me, it's no adamant there. I just say based on the points gap, maybe not so much. Well, let's say recent form in the league. They've got players returning, although there are some players out injured for the tonight's Champions League game. I feel like they're just in a better position to get it done. And there is still quite a lot to happen for it to not get done. But as like you mentioned, this is the crunch time of the season, and this is where things usually go wrong for Arsenal. They need to show the mentality because it's not about footballing ability at this point. It's about mentality to keep it together during this period because this is the period where they usually unwind. So, see, Sporting is no easy game like they've got tonight. Sporting were they not 4-0 down or 4-1 or something down?
Yeah, they came back to win. Yeah, against was it
Bodos.
the Bodos? Yeah, yeah.
Yep. And they came back and knocked them out. So they're no mugs. They are no mugs. So let's see how it all plays out on that front.
Yeah, I agree, man. We'll see how that goes. But listen, everyone's keeping their fingers crossed for an Arsenal meltdown. That'll make us give us a lot of content to talk about for the next couple of weeks. That is for sure. And then I want to talk about Ghana Blackstars briefly. We did a video when Otto was sacked last week by the Ghana Blackstars after the defeat to Germany. And there's been a lot of talk about who could potentially take over as the World Cup is only a few weeks, a couple of months away. And Joachim Low has emerged as a surprise candidate for that role. And I was really surprised when his name got mentioned. Obviously, he won the World Cup in 2014 with Germany. He's a well-respected coach in that particular realm, international football. What do you make of the links with Joachim Low and the Ghana Blackstars?
I think it's just links. Why Joachim Low would want to go and manage Ghana, I have no idea. Why Ghana would want to even reach out to Joachim Low, I have no idea. Because where's the continuity from that point? We want to have a manager that's going to help build us into the African Cup of Nations and so on and so forth. Joachim Low is not that guy. So I don't know what the angle is, what the strategy is. We already know that they spend a lot of money, wasted money, on previous managers. And I hear that the total sacking cost of Otto Addo was upwards of 500k. So how much are you going to pay Joachim Low just to run a World Cup campaign for you? I don't understand the logic behind it. Maybe it's just links and there is no real, traction behind any of this stuff. But hey, I don't know.
You mentioned logic, Flexx, but we all know that the GFA don't usually work with logic when they're making their decisions. And I think that's what we've seen happen. And that's the result as to why the Ghana Blackstars are where they are now, because a lot of the decision making hasn't added up. Joachim Low, I would probably say, is a very ambitious shout for a Ghana Blackstar manager. Of course, he's been successful with the German national team. He won the World Cup in 2014. But I don't think going from Ottawa straight to Joachim Low, and again, there's no rule. And we mentioned before, there's got to be some sort of project with the national team. There has to be, because we call for local players to play. We call for a more balanced squad, right? And I think we need to achieve that. You need a good coach to do that, but you also need a bit of a project, a bit of a vision there. In the last 3-4 years, it's been hire and fire with the Blackstars. There's been no real long-term vision there. A lot of the managers who've come in have been on short-term contracts. Some of them have actually been rehired after being fired. So when you work on that particular structure, it's very difficult to even, again, like you said, to attract somebody like Joachim Low to come and manage the national team. There's no benefit for him whatsoever. You could probably argue and say, well, if he was to take the job and it was to go really badly, that might damage his reputation as a coach. So for him, there might be a lot to lose as opposed to a lot to gain from taking this potential role. If they somehow managed to land him as a Ghana coach, that would be very surprising. But it would send a message and say, well, maybe we're serious now. We want to attract the best coaches and we actually want to do something here. But as you said, it's probably just links. Can't see it happening. To be honest, I mean, who do you think they will go and get then? If it's not going to be Joachim Low, who's like the realistic shout for the next head coach?
Well, I have no idea, to be honest. I was thinking more of a Hervé Renard because he's a very good coach. He's done well to win the African Cup of Nations with Zambia, and he's been around the different African teams and knows the lay of the land. So for me, if I was the one looking to do recruitment, he would be on my shortlist and probably number one on my shortlist as well. So after that, I have no idea
No
who would.
idea.
It's more because it's a poison chalice. If you look at it in a way, it's like, when we were, well, not we, when you lot were looking for managers, and it's like, well, every manager you get at United just can't seem to crack the code, and it just happens to be that potentially the guy from within has found a way to get things going again. So maybe we're looking too far adrift. Maybe it's someone from within who we can, kind of put into position and let them give them a good long run at it and get the nation to where it needs to be. I'm sure there are coaches from the historic squad that would probably chomp at the bit, So I think, why not give it to one of them? Because the boys will respect them automatically, because those boys are legends. So I think, why not give it to one of them guys,
Yeah, you're right. I think I think it'd be great to have previous players who represent the Black Stars to be involved in the setup of the national team. But I always feel as if the GFA don't want influential people like that, because they want people who they might be able to control or chew and spit out whenever they want. And
can they do that? Can they do that with Joachim Low? You can't
I don't think they could, but again, that might send a message that maybe they're serious now, and maybe they've realised we've made a lot of mistakes in the last 3-4 years. We need to get because again, he won't come in there and tolerate that. But again, they had Avram Grant, who managed in the Premier League, he managed your club Chelsea. They had Chris Hughton, who managed in the Premier League at Newcastle and Brighton, and so on and so forth. But they weren't treated with that respect, right? So maybe Joachim Low again is an ambitious shout, but he might be a character that might clash with them. But at the same time, they've hired people who have got good pedigrees in English football, or respectable pedigrees, and it's not really worked. So again, it's a case of, I agree. I think we should try and get former players involved in a national setup. Whether that happens or not, I don't know if they want that to happen or if they're open for that to happen. But one thing's for sure, Ghana needs to change direction, because at the moment, the group stage in this World Cup looks like it's going to be very, very tricky to qualify from if we don't get some sort of order and some sort of direction here, to be honest with you.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, look, Roy Hodgson is back in football. The 78-year-old took charge of Bristol City. 1-0 win over Sheffield United over the weekend, makes it back-to-back wins since he took over. And Roy Hodgson, 78 years old, he just comes across like a fellow who just loves managing, right? He's been in the game for so many years. We look at his work. We did that at Fulham, for instance, Crystal Palace. Didn't really work out at Liverpool for him, but again, he managed Inter Milan in the 90s. He's obviously managed England, and it kind of ended with that Iceland defeat, which is a bit unfortunate on his part. But Roy Hodgson, he just loves managing, and for him to be on a touchdown at 78 years old, man, I mean, that is some achievement, to be honest.
It is, and he's, he keeps going. The love for the game never leaves. So if he can keep doing it, why not? And he's providing results. So keep on going, Roy.
But do you think that managers like that? Because I remember Neil Warnock has come out of retirement as well, I think.
Yeah, he's another one. One. Even Gary O'Neill, he's come out of retirement. Yeah. So it just never leaves you, man. The football, it's one of those things. Like, you just, either you're talking football, you're playing football, you're managing football. Like, for these guys, it's their life. Let's be honest. So stepping away.
Do you feel like managers like Roy Hodgson, because we're talking about someone who's almost 80, right? And he's managing in modern football. And we speak about the eras that he's managed in over the last 3-4 decades, right? And for him to still be in a touchdown with football so different compared to when he first began coaching, do we often overlook managers like him? Because I know managers like himself, maybe even David Moyes, particularly, they don't always get that respect. They're not one of the major runners, but they've also been very good coaches and respectable coaches and had great careers in the game. Like, do we overlook those coaches?
100% they get overlooked. And like you said, in this modern era of football, they're looking for, how do you say, babysitters as opposed to real man managers. And that's what these fellas are. They're real man managers. And I feel like the game needs more of them. So I'm happy to see them back in the game so that they can actually set that standard again and maybe mentor a few of the other younger generations coming through, so that we can see replicas of these type of managers, not the type that always seem to be complaining and worrying about, oh, the pitch was too wet. Oh, it was this and that, like talking about all kinds of things. Like Arteta would complain about the most outrageous of things. You just think, hold on a second, how about we just get out there, play football and win? And that's all you got to do. And that's what these managers do. They come through, they simplify the game, and they give the boys confidence. And it's excellent. It's excellent. I feel like Carrick is cut from that cloth, that old school cloth. You can see it, not doing too much on the touchline, says all the right things. And, it looks like he's cut from that kind of cloth.
Yeah, I agree. I think you look at, as you mentioned, it was a great thing you said, they simplify things. Look at the likes of him, David Moyes, right? A lot of it, the tactics is simplified. You compare it to the modern coach where there's so much data involved. It's so tactical, in their approach, whereas these guys have a way of playing it. It's simple, the players understand it. It might not be the most attractive brand of football, for instance, but I think any type of player can adapt to that system because it's easy to understand and it gets results. It's simple. So I agree with you. I feel like Roy's has done a great stuff in his career. Again, with England, it's unfortunate the way it ended. But you look at his CV overall, right? There's not many coaches or managers in world football who have got his CV in terms of where he's managed around the world, his longevity in the Premier League as well. So yeah, it's great to see him on the touchline again. I just hope he's not there for too long, because when you're almost 80 out there, it's not very easy, is it? To be honest, but
it's not. But I'm sure he's got a good team around him that's making sure he's looked after, and he's probably just picking the team. I'm sure he might stand there during training and just observe what the coaches and so on are doing and things like that. And then he just comes in, gives the team talk, picks the team, and away we go.
Yeah, that's it. Let's move on to Chelsea now. It broke before Saturday's game. Chelsea beating Port Vale 7-0. Prior to the game, Liam Racina confirmed that Enzo Fernandes will be dropped for 2 games following his comments on the podcast, where he said that he was asked a question about what city he would like to live in. And I think he mentioned Madrid, and the club got hold of that, and that came across as if he wanted to move to Madrid, whether it's Atletico or Real Madrid. And yeah, he's been dropped for 2 games as a result of those comments. I mean, what do you make of that? Do you think it was harsh? Because I'm thinking, to drop a player for comments on the podcast, I mean, usually in this instance, clubs might fine players and they might give them a bit of disciplinary action, but to drop him for 2 whole games, do you think that was the right call from the club?
I mean, let's look at it this way. He's not stupid, right? He knows what he's trying to do, and that's why he's been dropped. What he should have, the correct answer is, where do you want to live? I live in the best city in the world already. And you don't have to believe none of this, but we know you have to give those kind of answers, so then that way you don't create drama and you don't create an avenue for these things to kind of happen. And he's not the first time. There's been rumblings of him wanting to move on and so on and so forth. And personally, I'm like, I don't think he's even a good player anyway. So
really, you don't rate Enzo?
Never did from the start. So it's like, dude, if you want to crack on, please be my guest. If we can recoup some of that 100 million that was spent, I'll be very happy. But I don't trust them not to go and spend the money even in the right place anyway. So we're screwed either way. So it's one of those things. But look, will he suit Real Madrid or any other team? Probably. So why not? He's a better player. He is at Chelsea. That I would say. I just think he's just not good for Chelsea. I'm not saying he's a crap player. I'm just saying I don't rate his style of play for Chelsea.
So you think that Caicedo's more of an effective midfielder for Chelsea than Enzo?
Easily. That's not even a question. Like, so easily. I mean, Caicedo is probably the best 6 in the Premier League. Like, comfortably in the Premier League. So it's one of those where when you have this guy, we don't even quite know where to put him in the team, because he's not quite a 10. He can't really sit in that pivot next to Caicedo. And so where does he actually belong?
Isn't he like an attacking? I had the same questions when I was asking Chelsea fans about Enzo, because I know he was signed off the back of their World Cup, right? But I don't really know what Enzo does. I mean, they say that he's more effective in attacking positions. So, for instance, number 10 position or number 8. But I've not really seen him have an impact on the Chelsea midfield as opposed to the likes of Palmer or even, as you mentioned, Caicedo. I don't think he does as much.
He's not cut out for the Premier League, man. he will look brilliant in the Spanish league. He just will. It suits his style of play, it suits his football and whatnot. The Premier League is just there is not much time on the ball and so on and so forth. And he's been here a little while and he still hasn't even come to grasp that and hasn't adapted his game to suit the league. So for me, I just feel like, move on.
I mean, a lot of footballers nowadays, a lot of footballers go for a lot of money who are just good on the ball. They're just silky on the ball flex. They don't really do much. Not when we talk about great midfielders, I always look at Luka Modric as like the benchmark of what midfielder should be. Like he was so good in all areas, right? Even the likes of Iniesta as well, Xavi. Like these guys are the benchmark for what top midfielders should be. But you look at players in the modern era, they go for 80, 90 million pounds. They don't do much. They're very silky on the ball. They can play it sideways, receive the ball, pass it, but I don't know. I don't. If you look again, I agree. I don't think he's an effective midfielder. Again, maybe he might be better suited in a different league. But at Chelsea, I've never really identified him as one of the top players, despite his fee. But yeah, listen, he's been dropped by Chelsea. I think Mark Cucurella made some comments as well about potentially moving away, but he wasn't punished by Chelsea, so that was a bit strange in that respect.
I don't even know what he said and how he said it. It might have just been how he said it, and that might have been the difference. But I have no idea. Couldn't tell you.
Because Racine referenced that in his press conference about Mark being disappointed that Cucurella didn't come to the club before making those comments. So yeah, I think maybe Enzo just saying Madrid and giving an indication as to where he wanted to go was just not, as you said, the right thing to do at that point. Well, let's move on to Lamine Yamal. Actually, he's listen. Barca played against Atletico Madrid a few days ago, and he was great in a game. Very, very good. He's a special player, a special talent, as we've seen. But there's been calls for concern about his attitude. And listen, we know he's what a talent the guy is, and he's produced on the very big stages, right, for Spain and Barcelona. But there was a bit of an altercation, not altercation, but a bit of a misunderstanding with him and Hansi Flick when he was substituted, and he went straight down the tunnel. And I don't know, Yamal's always had this kind of. He's always had the bit of back and forth with managers and also opposition players. And players have actually called out and said, "Listen, you're a great player, but you're still very young. You've still got to be respectful." So there's been a lot of calls about his attitude. I think we've probably spoken about this months ago. But yeah, what do you make of all that stuff?
Hey man, that's just talent. That's just talent, and you have to make room for those outbursts and those type of things because he probably feels like I could do so much more. Why are you taking me off? Blah, 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 these type of things. So take it with a pinch of salt. Like these managers, Hansi Flick and these guys, they were players once and they've been around players with those type of egos. They know how it goes. So for me, it's a nothing story. The guy's a huge talent. He's probably the best player in the world right now. Probably is the best player in the world right now. So you can expect that from somebody who is seen in that regard, having that type of temperament. And if you didn't have that type of temperament and that little bit of ego, it would be borderline, a bit weird. It's like...
You think it's weird? Because, I mean, Messi didn't have that ego, I guess, as a teenager.
Oh, we just didn't hear about it. But when you hear it, like if you've watched the Prince Boateng interview, where he talks about Messi being in the changing room while the team talk's happening, he's on the phone with his children, just chatting and blah blah blah. That's ego.
Yeah. I mean, as a teenager, when he was first emerging onto the scene.
Well, as a teenager emerging onto the scene,
as you meant that Boateng thing. Messi's. There's certain players in football who've earned the right to just. I'm not saying they're untouchable yet, but they've earned the right to do things like that because of what they've achieved in the game.
Messi is untouchable. Let's call it what it is.
Even now, him and lots of Ronaldo and stuff, they've earned the right because of what they've achieved in the game to be on FaceTime in the change room as the team talk's going on because they're just a special breed, right? But someone like Yamal, who's a burst on the scene, is an amazing talent. Has he got to be careful? He doesn't, because he's still very, very young, Flex. He's done a lot in this short space of time. But the question is, will we see another Ronaldinho situation where Ronaldinho peaked and he was so good in his peak, but you probably argue and say the latter stages of his career weren't the best.
See, people say that about Ronaldinho, but AC Milan Ronaldinho is arguably better than Barcelona's Ronaldinho.
Do you think so?
Arguably better. And even when he went all the way back to Brazil, he was putting numbers on the board. Like he was still doing a mad thing, but he just loved partying and what, the Brazil thing. For this guy, I think it's totally fine. And plus, he's a kid. Kids are like that. They just want to play football. They don't understand.
Do you know what kids should do as they're told? When you're substituted, go and sit down quietly.
That's what you would expect, but they don't. It's just like telling a kid, get off the PlayStation. They're not going to get off the PlayStation all peacefully, are they? They're going to want to want to keep playing, blah, 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 and give you a bit of lip. And then you're going to then say, hey, look, man, if you like, I'll just put this in the bin. And I don't care for this £500 gadget. I'll put it in the bin. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things. That's all it is for him. And we're just watching him grow. Because remember, he came through 15, 16, doing a mad thing. What's he now? 18 or something like that?
Yeah, 18,
and 18, and he's still doing a mad thing. He's still got a long way to grow. So for me, I think it's all of a pinch of salt, man. I think it's all of a pinch of salt. It's a kid.
All right, well, Norris, let's finish off. Aaron Ramsey's retired. The former Wales international. And yeah, he's announced his retirement today. Obviously, the former Arsenal, Rangers, and he went back to Cardiff as well. After I think he signed from Cardiff in 2008 for Arsenal, and he went back to Cardiff eventually as well. His boyhood club. And Aaron Ramsey, I remember him being a really good player at Arsenal. And also, I remember the 13-14 season where he scored, I think he got double digits for goals, maybe 15 or 16 goals. And you got to remember as well, he suffered that horrible leg break against Stoke City. I think it was in 2009. And yeah, I remember at the time watching that leg break and just being horrified, right, about that injury. And for him to come back the way he came back and to have a really good career, and as a result, I think he even scored the winner against Hull City for Arsenal in the 2014 FA Cup final. So for him to come back and to have a resurgence in his career the way he did, there's a lot of credit, Aaron Ramsey. And again, a really good player in the Premier League for Arsenal. I wouldn't put him as a very, very top players, but again, a very decent player. Again, could score goals, got assists, was a box-to-box player. Yeah, a really, really good player. What's your thoughts on Aaron Ramsey's career?
I think he was a brilliant midfielder, even after recovering from that horrible, horrible ankle injury, that ankle break. He still went on to have a very decent career. Let's not forget, he went to Juventus, and had a really decent time out there too. So, hey, congratulations on retirement. He's done everything he can do. I remember that combination of him and Bale for the national team. It was literally a great 1-2 partnership, and that propelled them into their very first, was it Euros? Or was it the World Cup? Yeah. The Euros, right?
When they part of that generation that had the likes of Bale, Ashley Williams.
That's correct. Yeah.
I think Joe Allen was in the team as well.
Right, yeah. So when you looked at it, they had a very strong spine, Ashley at the back, Ramsey in the middle, and Bale up top. And it was just literally that 1-2-3 combination that saw them push through to the Euros. And not just getting there, also handing a devastating blow to England as well during that group stage as well. So he's had a good career. I don't know if the Arsenal lot will regard him as one of their legends. I don't know. But I would say he would be definitely one of their better players to have played for the club during that time before the ankle break. He was like a Rolls Royce, man. Like the way he just glided across the pitch, did everything right. What a player. What a player he was. Yeah.
Yeah, very good player. Very good player. Well, yeah, Flexx, we'll leave it there for this week. Thanks as always for joining me on the roundup. And guys, as always, follow us on Instagram, you can follow us on X, and also now TikTok as well. And of course, as always, it goes without saying, please continue to like and subscribe on YouTube. Leave a comments down below. We want to hear your thoughts on Lamine Yamal, Enzo Fernandes being dropped by Chelsea, and also your thoughts on Aaron Ramsey's career as well. And Arsenal fans, listen, are you starting to get worried now? Is a double going to happen, right? We're hoping that something mess up. Can't lie. But no, as always, guys, leave a comment down below in the comment section. And Flexx, as always, it's been a pleasure. And I'll see you in the next episode.
Sir.